At the center of the universe, at the border between the light and the dark, stands Castle Grayskull. For countless ages, the heroes of Grayskull have defended the universe against the forces of evil. Walk through the Hall of Living Pictures and learn the history and mystery of the Masters of the Universe. Dive deep into the mythology of Eternia, Etheria, and more. For those who know the stories of Grayskull will come the power. The power to be supreme. The power to be all-knowing. The power to be Legends of Grayskull.
Hello everybody and welcome to Legends of Grayskull, the fan podcast where we discuss the history, the mystery, the magic, and mythology of He-Man, She-Ra, Eternia, Etheria, Primus, Norder, Golden Books, Ladybird Books, UK Annuals, comics, mini-comics, magazines, Filmation, Jetlag, anything and everything He-Man, She-Ra, Masters of the Universe. Got that Mattel logo on the back that you can think of. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 10. I'm Matthew Duch. This is Shawn Scavarna.
I like the hand. That was very sleight of hand.
That was. I forgot which way you were sitting for a second there. So Shawn, how are we doing today?
I'm always forgetting. I'm happy. I don't know. I'm just happy. I'm trying to make the best of the quarantine, even though I feel like the Bill Murray, well, it's quarantine day again, basically. But yeah, I'm here. How about you?
I'm here. I'm happy. I'm feeling glad. I've got sunshine in a bag.
Oh.
Don't take us down, YouTube. I only said it. Spoken word does not count as copyright infringement.
Well, technically, the way that song sounds, it sounds more spoken word to me, but I'm just going to say that.
Oh, that's the kind of mood I'm in.
Hey, yeah,
had a day off today, rested, relaxed, and ready to talk some He-Man.
And the Masters of the Universe.
You know, I don't think we've ever discussed it in full detail. Let's take a second here, because it hit me even harder tonight for some reason. I watched this episode that we're going to discuss just about an hour ago. And that opening sequence is just pure perfection, man. I mean, every time I watch, I'm amazed, but for some reason it hit me tonight. It's like, it's got everything. It's got the theme music. It's got the action. It's got the atmosphere, you know, the purples and the night Eternia, you know, all those colors and... I don't know. It just something hit me tonight, especially about just how amazing that opening is. It tells you everything you need to know. You don't need to see a single episode. You watch that intro and you're like, okay, I know what's going on here. That's Adam. He becomes He-Man. Cringer Battle Cat. Let's kick some villain butt. You know?
Yeah, it's true. It's a hugely succinct way to get everybody on board, no matter where you jump onto this franchise, and it's brilliant. I mean, imagine go in the Wayback Machine with me for a second, since we're going here. So we're subtracting about 38 years of my life, 30 maybe 37 years of my life. I was in kindergarten.
I'm in trouble then.
You weren't born. and I knew about this cartoon about a year before it aired through some magazine that my parents got me. I remember there was like the fall TV listings in this magazine, and there was one image in it showing He-Man on top of Battle Cat. It's basically like when he jumps on Battle Cat and they have that shot where you like Battle Cat rears up. And that was the image they had in it. So it's the only picture I saw of this show. And I knew there was a He-Man cartoon coming that fall. My fuzzy little head exploded just going, they're making a cartoon of this toy I love.
Sure.
And for, like out of the two of us, you're way more of the Filmation fan than I am at times because of, you see stuff in this that I might have overlooked. And this episode's going to be a huge case in point, the one that we're going to talk about tonight. But that intro still packs a wallop when you watch it, whether or not you are a mini comics fan or if you're a Filmation person, even if maybe you've never even watched the show, you could put that on and just go, what do you think? Right. And watch that. Because I remember, like, seeing He-Man, like you got that, here comes the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And when I was a kid, I was like, that wasn't what I expected, but it was the font and everything. And I'm like, I'm going to ride this out. Let's see what happens. And, the minute you get up to the, by the power of Grayskull, for me as a kid, I'm just like, yeah. And it was like every day, that was your daily testosterone boost as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, as you got older, watching that thing. And it said everything you need to know.
Well, that's it. That's the biggest thing that hits me. It's like you've got all these overdone credit scenes nowadays, or they either go one of two things. They either don't do anything, they just flash a title card. Or they have like this overdone stuff where it's like dragging out and you're bored, or it's like all over the place, or it's like it's so simple. It's just Adam talking to the camera. It's his transformation. It's introducing 3 others, and it's showing some villains, and it's just it's so simple yet so effective. So
one other thing that I'll say about it though is, there is something special to it, and even the She-Ra one that not a lot of cartoons did back in those days, which was when you watched that show, when you sat down to watch that every day, Prince Adam is letting you be one of the extra, like he has the only 3 others share this secret, but he's like, but it's also you.
Right.
And that makes it more special than hardly all of the other stuff out there. The only other time I could think of where it had that kind of a moment was if you watch the Max Fleischer Superman serials from the 1930s and 40s. They always have that moment where at the end it'd be like, well, Lois, I can't be Superman. And then he'd turn at the camera and he'd wink.
Yeah, he'd do the wink.
And it's like that whole moment there where it's like, I am Adam, Prince of Eternity. It's like he's letting you in on everything. So it's the whole, you're my friend. You're with me on this. Let's have an adventure together. Right. And as a kid, there was this, like, I want to be on an adventure with He-Man. Let's do this. It's like it made you get pumped for the entire show to know he wants you to be his friend too. It's I'm your friend. It's not just I'm this unreachable hero stereotype or something. It's come with me. Let's have an adventure. I got your back. We're gonna have a good time.
I am Adam, Prince of Eternia. Here's what's going on. Let's go do it. It doesn't need to be over explained. It doesn't need to be overhyped. It's just plain and simple and amazing that Shuki Levi's score and the voice acting and just pure perfection.
The score. Oh, the score of this show.
It's like as you.
It's for as much as I love 2000X, the score of this show still trumps anything they did on 2000X for me. I mean, it's not to tangent too much, but the difference though in tones is Mike Young 2000X for me is genuinely, this is the barbarian hero the way that I always kind of imagined it when I was a kid playing.
Yeah.
And the way they did it with Filmation flat out was, this is a superhero show. And there is a lot of superhero elements in this show. Even it's an action adventure show for kids, but there is that superhero element. So they did right by doing, let's make a fanfare theme for He-Man anytime something big's about to happen, because when Superman's flying into battle, you hear that John Williams score and your heart starts soaring.
Absolutely.
Same thing with He-Man. The minute he gets into battle and you just hear that boom, boo, doo, 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 and it's like, it's about to go down. And I don't care who you are, if you don't like Filmation or not, the minute that kicks in, if that doesn't get your heart pumping and get you excited for something, you're doing something wrong.
And that's exactly it. I will say the 2000X score, the Mike Young production score, has grown on me. I like it a lot more now than when it first came out, honestly. It was
Excuse me.
Oh, quarantine. 30 days.
Well, I'm already quarantined, so
okay,
that's what it
is. But yeah, the Mike Young score has grown on me a lot. It's very, and I think it's the same guy if I recall correctly. It's very Hercules, the Legendary Journey, Xena, Warrior, Princess. I'm pretty sure he's either the same guy or he was just influenced by him. But it's grown on me a lot. But yeah, there's something about the Filmation score that just like it makes me a 10-year-old boy again. Like every time I hear it, I just get giddy. And leading in here, once again here, this just reiterates my point. I'm beating the dead horse. Filmation took this stuff seriously. And you can still take it seriously and have fun with it. There can be comedy and it can be a serious show. Which I think we're going to prove very much so. Nice segue into discussing what episode, Shawn?
We are discussing The Rainbow Warrior tonight, which The Rainbow Warrior for me is not one I remember from childhood, but it's one that when I started getting into a lot of the masters groups on Facebook, people would say, what are your top 5 episodes of Filmation? And I would just scour those lists every now and then. And a lot of the time, this episode ended up on it, and it made me just go like, I don't remember this at all. I watched it on YouTube about a year ago, and I remember just going, wow. And when we were talking about episodes, I was hoping, if anybody hasn't seen this one in a while, or if you haven't seen it but you're a He-Man fan, give this one a view.
Absolutely.
My friends. It is... Yeah, I watched it twice tonight, and this one for me, it didn't get old either time when I watched it.
Oh, no, this one never does. And this one, I didn't see myself until it was sometime in high school. It was after I got my first set of bootleg VHSs, actually off the He-Man.org forums. Back then we used to trade. We used to get bootleg VHSs because nobody was putting this stuff out. Hallmark, it was Hallmark at the time. They owned the rights to it, but they did nothing with it. It sat in a warehouse for a decade, and they did nothing with it. So we were forced to have to trade, and that was the first time I saw it. So I was older. And it still made an impact on me. Honestly, probably a bigger impact than it would have if I'd seen it as a kid, to be quite honest. Because this episode is... It's very thematic. There's a lot of talking. But it's a solid story. It was written by Bob Forward and Leslie Wilson. And it was directed by Gwen Wetzler. The script was approved April 13th of 1984. The final script revision was June 18th of 1984. And it aired in the UK on February 17th of 1987. Once again, big thanks to James E. Tock's Complete Guide to He-Man and She-Ra, the animated series, for that.
Yes. So... To start this off, I got a question for you because we're both parents.
Absolutely.
And this episode is quite a nod at... And this is probably why if I would have seen it as a kid, it wouldn't have gotten nearly the amount of weight out of it. But now as a parent and watching this episode, there's something that resonates with this so much more to me now than it ever would have as a kid.
Sure.
And there's like something about this episode as well that it resonates for me as a kid, thinking about who was the person that got me into He-Man. My mom. And now that I'm older and I look at my kids and I think of the same thing, like, my parents probably look at, my kids look at me probably as, oh, that's just dad, you know, and all that stuff. But this episode's one of those ones where it's like, Now your parents could be pretty badass, when the chips are down and stuff. And,
absolutely.
What's your take on that? Because I felt like it did impact me a heck of a lot more now that I've become a father than if I wouldn't have been a dad watching.
Well, for sure, it was. It's. Yeah, everything you said. It's seeing King Randor and Prince Adam no more. But it's knocked up a level, whereas in that episode we just see a little taste of it. And I don't know, even then there's something even more so about, like, it's kind of easier to see, or at least for me, it's kind of easier to see your dad as like a person, and moms, I don't know, they always seem to be more superhuman.
Yes.
In a way.
Very agreed.
Like, you just I don't know. I have a much harder time picturing my mom being someone young and, even young and foolish, or young and inexperienced, or I don't know what it is. Something just about the way moms are and the way they put themselves on. It's a lot harder to see your mom as anything else than your mom.
Yeah.
But yeah, this episode it's even the parts with Tila, which I'll get to, well, we'll just say Tila's right at the beginning, towards the beginning. Tila's having a hard time accepting that she lost at a jousting tournament, and actually, when I was watching it, my wife was in the room, and she was half paying attention to it. I'm not even gonna say she was actually watching it, but she was hearing it, and my son was watching it with me, and it got to the point where Tila was throwing a fit, basically, about losing at this jousting match. And I go, well, it's Aubrey who's our oldest daughter. It's because she is a very sore loser. No one said anything to her that I said anything. She never fit about it. But she's a very sore loser. She hates losing. She hates losing. And she'll be like that when she really loses. She did softball last year, and at one of the games she was like blaming the refs after the game and stuff. And it's like, and Jess, she turns, and I go, it's Aubrey, and she's like, oh, it really is, like, as Tila's mouthing off the Man at Arms and everything, and it's like. And yeah, that's the strength of this story. It's a story of generations. It's a story of Queen Marlena. It's a story of parents. It's a story of children. It's got all those thematic elements in there, and at the same time, it's still got some of the best action scenes in the series.
Yeah,
like this is such a strongly written episode. Seriously, guys, if you haven't watched this, go watch it before you listen to us, because this thing hits on all cylinders.
I was telling you before we started the show that I was listening to the Roast Google Dinner episodes where they were talking about their foundations and masters. What was it that attracted them to it? Mm-hmm. And I know Danielle was saying how there were episodes of Filmation where she would get choked up or get emotional watching. Depending what happened to the characters, like, when He-Man threw when Adam throws the power sword into the abyss, stuff like that. But here's the thing, for me, I'm not gonna lie, I'll be completely honest here. I got misty-eyed both times watching this episode, because there's something about the fact that it wasn't He-Man that actually is the one that's the hero.
Yep.
And they have all of these moments in it where it's like you have like all of the royal guards saluting her, and there's this element of like, it gets me on this whole different level than if He-Man was doing the heroics, because that's just a given. But here's a situation where someone else is stepping up, and for some reason, it resonated even more with me that it was his mom. Like my mom would have done something crazy if I was in trouble, know?
Absolutely.
And there's that element, and then it's like, when that's the whole thing. I look at my kids, and it's like, yeah, I'd do some crazy shit if my kids were in trouble, and I wanted to make sure they were safe too. And you're seeing a whole nother level of her, that it's like a mom is superhero already, a superhuman in that way.
Oh, absolutely.
But when you get that moment, which we'll get to, where she finds out what happens, she turns on a dime, and just does this. We're bringing the fight to him, and it's like, oh, you know.
And and that's why I say I'm glad I saw this when I was older than as a kid, because as a kid, I know me, I would have just been like, man, they're talking a lot in this episode.
Yes.
Because they do. They talk like... Honestly, even Skeletor talks a lot in this episode. Like, it's just... But these characters are written so well, and the interesting part of it is this is a season 2 episode.
Yeah.
This is I mean, it is after the parents groups have, gotten involved and written angry letters, and Filmation's told they have to tone it down, but basically if you ask almost any even fan of the property, they say, season 2, that's where the quality declined as far as the strength of the stories. But this one absolutely did not.
This one's magical for me.
And this is Bob Forward. This is actually the first script that he's written. This was his writing debut. I believe he was directing before that. Because I know he's been... Was he a director? I don't know if you remember off the top of your head. But he's been involved with... Yeah. He was involved in the series the whole way. But this was the first time he was a writer. And he said, he's gone on record, he wanted to write this episode purely because he felt that Queen Marlena was the most underused character in the series.
Agreed.
So he completely just came at this like, no one's using Marlena. Let's build an episode around her.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we get. So
yeah, the only one where I could think of that I remember her being in it, other than just sitting in the throne room or sitting at the dinner table or something, is the one, and it was at Teela's Quest, I think, the one where they're using that headband Man-at-Arms made, and she's getting to show Teela this is how she came to Eternia.
Right.
But then it's just like, that's that, and then they move on.
Which was reused here as well. They go through it again. So let's jump in. So
yeah, let's do it, or else I'm just going to keep going. Yeah,
because we'll talk about the whole episode. But so it opens up.
Let's pace it.
It opens up in Snake Mountain. Quite a long scene in Snake Mountain too. That's what I'm talking about. Like opens up with Skeletor and Trapjaw and Beastman, and Skeletor's, he's playing. He's having a pity party. Like he's like, oh, my patience is thin. And like no, everyone's ignoring him. He's like, my patience is thin. And Trapjaw goes, oh no, you're not thin, boss. If anything, you're a little fat.
Yep. and then he gets shot in the butt.
And the reason, we don't usually go this in depth, but basically this whole opening scene is Skeletor trying to come up with a plan. And, he's going, oh, I've tried to conquer Grayskull 6 times this week. And Beastman's like, oh no, it was 7. And Skeletor goes, no, it's 6. The first time was practice. It didn't count.
Yes.
And this whole scene is just Skeletor and Beastman and Trapjaw just like trading, like it's like a Abbott and Costello sketch. Like,
it is.
But the reason I bring it up is because I was cracking up.
So was I.
I was gonna say you're still cracking up.
Well, it's to see him shoot somebody in the butt.
and I know you're one of the ones that you don't like so much when the villains are played as fools.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it worked for me here. This opening scene, this worked for me. I still felt that they were menacing, but the way they were giving Skeletor lip and not paying attention to him, and Skeletor's reactions where he's like, well, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to zap you in the butt. It's like, it worked for me. This one really did.
I mean, no, I'm not the biggest fan of Skeletor being portrayed as a comedic character. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it was my mood today, or maybe it was just whatever. But just the thing about that whole moment for me is it's magnifying why he loses.
Yeah.
And I think it's like he's in on it now. He's seeing them not even paying attention to him. So he's pissed, and then they're just like, "We're watching a jousting match," but it's like, he's just there like, "No, it was 7, or 6 or whatever. And 7, the one was practice and all." But when you get to him doing that, that's when I'm laughing because I'm like, "Oh my god, he's basically it was a do-over."
Yeah, the first one didn't count. It was practice.
Yeah,
and Beastman goes, "Well, I guess He-Man doesn't know how to take a joke, huh?"
Yeah, and I don't know if it's that I just kind of think to myself, it's Filmation. There's a pretty good chance that it's going to have that with them. But I don't know.
I think
it works for me.
It's well-written jokes. Like, it's just funny. It's just...
It is.
It's, once again, Bob Forward here. It's well-written. It's you're laughing just because it's, like I said, it's a who's on first.
Yes.
What's on second? It's just like, okay, that's just good. And the thing is, I think also part of it is the way they animated Skeletor, and I noticed this throughout the episode. There was a lot more. Like, there's a couple different Skeletors as you notice when you're watching this. There's the very comic effect where like his eyes will get real big and stuff, and then there's like
expressive, yeah.
And then there's this one where they use a lot of the hard angles and everything, and this one seemed to have almost all the hard angles throughout it for Skeletor, which I thought helped keep him, a legitimate threat. It's a very well animated throughout. Honestly, this is one of the better ones. There's not a whole lot of stock footage really, or if there is, it's masked well enough where you're not like, oh yeah, there's that scene again. So
yeah, and the way that they animated him in boredom, and they mix it because like they do have that like him standing from his throne, then he sits back down, and then he's like this again, and then he's and it's like there's like the way they incorporated it where typically he'd stand up and he's like in a power pose because it's the whole he's about to get something done and he's just standing up because he's annoyed,
right?
And then he sits back down because he's just bored again, and it works. As much as like I said, damn it, it's another instance where it's like for as I'm not anti-Filmation, but I'm just it's like I feel like it's more child friendly than I'd want Masters to be, but it's like there's still this endearingness to this stuff. There's no way around it.
See, that's what I was curious about, whether you like I said, I know you don't like it when it goes too jokey, but I thought this opening scene was done well. As far as actually like Skeletor being menacing and coming up with a plan and delivering these zingers. Like, this is Filmation best right here. I think this is a good blend where it's like the adults can enjoy it, the kids can enjoy it, and it's just But
no, I agree.
So basically, Skeletor just comes up with this plan, a pretty simple plan. He needs a bigger army to conquer He-Man, so he's going to take over the palace so that he'll have the entire royal guard at his disposal and double his army. He'll have his robot fleet, and he'll have his henchmen, and he'll have, the royal guard as well. So, okay, fine. Simple plan. He's tried it before, but, it works for me.
Well, it's one of those things where, if you think about it longer, because he's bored. So it's the idea of, anything that sounds like you're getting out of the house is awesome. I mean, we're under quarantine, and this is the whole, like, I'm sure there's people out there where it's like, man, I'd just like to go to the post office and mail a letter so I can get out of the damn house. Yeah. So, like, the idea of him throwing this out there and going, like, this sounds like a great plan. But if you think about it, all of those royal, the royal guards have their own minds.
Yeah.
They aren't robot henchmen. So you got this vibe like, you think this is great until all of a sudden you hear one of them go, Skeletor, you suck. What is that? What would you say? And he gets all pissed at everybody. And he's like, I want him reported. And all that stuff. It's like, now you got more headaches, dude. But at this moment, it's like, hey, it sounds like a great idea because otherwise I got to deal with you two all day,
Yeah. It was a little weird how they kind of framed like taking over the royal palace as like some brand new scheme, but other than that, it's like whatever. It's a cartoon. Let's go.
Sure. Yeah. Let's run with it.
But then we get treated to the royal palace. We got this nice new jousting arena background. That's a really cool set piece with his and her thrones for the king and queen up there with it. Very, very medieval, very knights jousting, but apparently in Eternia, jousting means that we're all on sky sleds and we're shooting stun beams at each other. Because that's how we roll here.
Yeah, not quite jousting, but it still worked.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much, watching Tila in action in this is kind of fun, and seeing her have like you said, get like your daughter moments where she can't win and she's a sore loser and all that. And Tila's not somebody that I remember thinking of as being quite the way she's written here, where she's that much of an annoying person.
Yeah,
but she's really annoying at this point, because even with when she loses, and she's like, well, he was above me and I can't get there, and I was like, well, you needed to know where you were on the field, and you weren't listening, you weren't paying attention. And then Marlena's doing, well, we knew this maneuver, and maybe I'll teach it to you, and she's just like, yeah, okay, thanks. And then she just get back into it. And if I was Randor, I'd have been like, dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow, because it's like she's just like brushing off the queen, like the queen doesn't know anything.
Probably the one that springs to mind where we've seen her the most is like father, like daughter, where she gets mad at Man-at-Arms in that episode as well, and takes off. But yeah, she wasn't. It's not always this bad. Tila hates to lose. She hates being criticized. She hates being, which I think works with her as long as it's not played up, as long as it's not overbearing. Like I think Mike Young actually took it farther than this too often. She really ragged on Adam a lot in the beginning of that series, and rewatching it recently, I'm like, man, they really made her stick it to him. Like 5 or 8 episodes later, she's still are you gonna run off again? And all that, and it's like, man. Whereas Filmation, I think they did a better job of it, but there are these moments like father, like daughter. Even in Tila's quest, she takes off on her own, and it's just kind of that side of Tila, which works for her as long she is a young female who's captain of the guard, who's come up in traditionally a man's game. I mean, I can see it. It doesn't bother me, and it works here for the point they're making. They really played up like you said, the parent-child thing, not only with Adam and Marlena, but even Tila. And we've all been there where our parents try and tell us how to do something, and we're young and dumb, and we think, oh no, we don't. I know better.
I know better.
So it worked here for me, but yeah, the basis of it was that there was this guy sled above her shooting down at her, and because she's complaining because they don't have top guns, so how could she shoot back up at this guy?
Yep.
And the Immelmann turn, which is an actual maneuver originated in World War I by a German pilot named Max Immelmann. So.
Oh, okay.
That was actually a real Earth maneuver.
I was wondering. Nice.
And that's another thing here is you forget a lot of time. You don't really forget, but it gets to the back of your mind that Marlena is from Earth originally. Like we all know it, but it's never been more obvious than this episode. I would say this even more so than Visitors from Earth, even though that's literally got Visitors from Earth. Because it really takes you through. Because in this scene, she's talking about actual like World War stuff. So even if she came from the future of planet Earth, she still, knows her history. And I don't know, it really broke down that barrier in this one with all of her, her musings and everything. And you really start to think about how much she's given up, never having returned to Earth when she crash landed here.
Yeah, and like the next sequence when she's there and she's getting to see her ship that brought her here to Eternia. I thought that was there's these little moments like that where it's just like, wow, it really has some soul to this, and just her having these moments, and like I like that Randor, he even says, I'm thankful for the ship, it brought you to me, and they're having these moments between them where there's chemistry there that you don't get to see on other episodes, which is great. And I love that, it's putting it even into the history of, well, Man-at-Arms repaired her ship. and it's in a museum now, and it's there to recognize this is how our queen came to Eternia and all this. But I like that for her, it reminds me of there's a little bit of like a Maverick and Top Gun kind of vibe or something like that. She's looking at it and she's like, taking her hand and like, kind of petting it almost and stuff. She's like, hi, old friend. It's got that like, adventure vibe to it that it's like right there. You're seeing a layer of her that you don't normally see, and I love that. She's
always sitting on the throne. We don't get to see her take an action, but she was a NASA pilot. Like she's been in countless missions here. Even actually earlier, even during the jousting scene, Randor turns her and it goes, something like, reminds you of old times, huh? And she goes, oh yeah, it's like, and I love that, like that even when she disappears and she goes to the museum to look at her ship, and Randor comes up and he's like, oh, I knew I'd find you here. Mm-hmm. Like, you really get that, like you said, you get that love that they have, that relationship they have, that you don't get to see, because we never stop and focus on Randor and Marlena. They're either in trouble, or they're sending He-Man or Man-Arms on a quest, or, but you don't really sit there and think, like, these are people who have found each other, who have loved each other, you really get that chemistry here. And I know as a kid I would have just been like, oh, okay, they're talking now, I'm going to go, I'm going to tune out. Like, you get the gist of it, but not, like you said, the voice acting here is amazing. You really feel this history of, the past. You got to figure Adam's supposed to be 18 in this series.
18, probably 20 years maybe.
25 years maybe. I mean, depending on how long, a lifetime, that they're spent together. You really feel that in this one scene. You get all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, wow, something happened. I was thinking about it, and it's like, that was something to make a quick comparison to 2000X.
Oh, wow.
There was definitely this feeling from the get-go of the two of them having like something there, and their interplay with each other. I think what they did was they actually looked at episodes like this and they're like, let's make sure they have a supportive role rather than just here they are going to be sitting on the throne all the time or whatever. And I think episodes like this were definitely a step forward in that show, going, no, we're taking them seriously. Mm-hmm. Randor's a man of action. Marlene is going to be somebody who's not a damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. And on both counts it did well. And this is how that started with this. And it's like, I was thinking about it tonight going, man, I really wish they would have started them even in season 1 doing more like this too. Because that would have made me even more involved in the family structure in Adam's life more than just, typically Randor's like, I'm ready to eat. He's like eating, the big drumsticks and stuff. And Marlene is just kind of there, and this one just, for me, it was such a nice, like, wow, the amount of character in these characters for this episode.
And that's the thing, because if you go back, ever since they made the series Bible for Filmation, before they even started production, they had this whole backstory for Marlena. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and that's basically what prompted Bob Forward to write this, because he's going, we created all this and nobody's using it. Like,
that's a shame, man.
Like we said, it showed up in Tila's quest, where we got filled in on the backstory of how she came to Eternia. And then that's pretty much it. There might be something else in there here or there for Marlena, but that's the big moment that pops to my head up until here. I mean, and like, for them to have created this whole thing and just not to use it is just a shame. Mm-hmm. But luckily,
I'm glad they did.
Yeah, we get to see it here. We get this awesome scene with her and Randor saying, hey, we're going to the beach. Jousting's done. We're going to the beach. You want to come with us? It'll be fun. She's like, no, I want it. Like you said, it's like a Maverick moment. She's like, no, I just want to stay here a bit longer. And it's like, she just wants to be with her ship. She just wants to remember her glory days, her racing through space, exploring. I mean, and you got to figure, that's the thing, just being a NASA astronaut, that means she was at least some sort of a scientist as well, too, because, all those guys all the astronauts are pretty much like they're usually an astronaut in some sort of scientific profession a lot of times. So this is a character who's got a lot of depth, a lot of intelligence, and now she's pretty much just the queen. Like, what a change in life, huh?
Well, the only other time that I was thinking, the one where Man-at-Arms turned to stone.
Yeah.
That was one of the other
Gift.
times where Dragon's Gift, where they had her at least trying to use her Earth science to try to help them.
Yeah, they did.
And that was one of the other few times where I could think of where, even though that didn't really help, and she basically gave the deadline of when that was going to be permanent, and that was it. But it was still like, at least they went there. Yeah.
She was still shown to be an intelligent individual. She is. She's... yeah, it just never used enough. So we're treated to a nice flashback sequence again that we saw in Teela's quest. Interestingly enough, that's the one funny thing is that out of all this is in this episode her ship is called the Rainbow Explorer. In Teela's quest it was called the Valiant. So a little bit of continuity error there.
I'm not gonna lie. I think it would have been cool to call this one the Valiant Warrior.
Yeah.
I kind of, because like when I heard Rainbow Warrior, when it was listed in all of those lists, all I kept thinking was, is this the one where it happens? He-Man and Rainbow Bright team up for the first time. It's got that vibe to it. Like as a guy, when you hear Rainbow Warrior, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. I'm not trying to put anybody down, but there's an automatic feeling of, this is going to get a little more pastel or something than I needed to for He-Man, right? But then when I know what it's about, it's like, oh, but the Valiant would have been a cooler name, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It would have given it more cred for her, in my opinion, too.
I think it probably could have just come up with a better title all around, because even Rainbow Warrior doesn't really, like, I never thought anything of it. Like you said, like same thing as you. I discovered this episode, and it was like people were talking about it, and I'm sure I checked out on James Etalk, or he was Busted Tunes back then, and the Headlock Angels episode review site. And I checked it out because basically as you hear about the moment at the end, and that's why you check out this episode.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. All right.
But yeah, I don't know, it doesn't mean anything really. The Rainbow Warrior, like you're hearing that even as a He-Man fan who's never seen the episode, like it doesn't click anything with you. You know what I mean? Honestly, it's kind of like The Search. It's like...
I was just going to say that. It is like that, where the title makes you just go, so?
Yeah.
Like there's an element of that to it.
So I don't know what a better title could have been. Maybe The Valiant Warrior. I don't know. But yes, title
Moms
definitely.
are awesome.
Moms are awesome.
Mama Bear.
I don't know. For me, it's kind of, I don't know, last chance, last hope, I don't know. For some reason, I want to go to like a last thing, because as we find out here, like this is pretty much like, all your A-list characters are taken out pretty quickly here. So it's kind of, I don't know.
I don't even know what Rainbow Warrior to me just that for me doesn't. It's Marlena's episode. The ship is secondary. The ship is enabling her to do this, but it's all Marlena doing this stuff. That's the main thing, I think. So.
But so she stays with the ship. The rest of them head to the beach, and so Skeletor, as part of his plan, he sets out to capture all of them. He sees them heading towards the beach. They go in the collector, and they use the awesome freeze rays to capture Man-Arms, Teela, Orko, King Randor, and Prince Adam all in one fell swoop. Why they didn't do this years ago, I don't know. But
it's him learning. He learned. He's like, well, I'm just gonna do it like this.
I will say this. This is my one nitpick of not even of the episode, but just of the trope in general. I hate freeze rays. I absolutely hate them. They give me a stun beam. Give them something that knocks somebody out but doesn't kill them, but knocks them out. Have them laying on the ground. And I know that's what they wanted to avoid. I get that there was this stigma even around showing people laying unconscious, and they do it as little as possible. But I hate beams that freeze somebody in place and make them look like glass. And Tila's standing there with one leg up, which
and Adam's standing there going.
That I liked.
So it's like,
that I did like actually, because the sword actually does appear there in a couple of frames too, and he's like that looks cool, but like I just in general I hate freeze rays. I've hated them in every cartoon movie, everything that uses freeze rays. I just because the logic doesn't work.
Well, they have on this series, and I know they did it on Mike Young too. They had the ray where if they shot somebody, they'd just stand in place and they'd be locked in that pose. Yeah. They weren't ice; they were just like it was like a stun freeze effect that they did. Well, and that because the other thing I was thinking in this moment, this is nitpicking a whole bunch.
Absolutely, that's what we do.
They're on a beach and he uses ice. Yeah. And he says they'll be frozen for an hour. I'm like, dude, have you ever eaten ice cream on the beach? Like that ain't gonna work for an hour.
Well, and I know my nitpick thing was like he's blowing this freeze ray, and that's the other thing. Like normally, at least it looks like a ray, like a laser beam. This time it was just like wind across the sand.
Yeah.
But the waves are fine. Like the waves are fine. The sand's fine, but it's just them. It's I don't know. Maybe just the laziness of it. Like, and you know that's probably more. It's probably more the fact that after they get hit with the freeze ray, that they look like these glass sculptures of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't have a problem with it with Mr. Freeze in the various Batman the Animated Series, because of the way it freezes. It always like freezes them in a chunk of ice.
Yeah. I was thinking that too.
So okay,
it should have just been a giant block of ice.
Yeah, if it was in a block of ice.
Yeah.
And especially the way and I know Batman came later, animation, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, the way they always animated like Mr. Freeze's stuff in there, because it was always like jagged, like you'd have like the arm freeze and there'd be like the like tendrils of ice shooting off, like you really get the motion of the ice. Like that's cool. I like that. I can deal with that. I don't like these freeze rays that just are like I was frozen in place there for the audio listeners. That I don't like, but other than that, that's my nitpick. That just
that part just it was for me. That was very Filmation of them. That's all I could say.
We just talked about stun beams earlier during the joust, so why not use them? You know, same like in Secret of the Sword when Mantenna uses his stun beams. Like, that's cool. Like, I don't mind people being stunned and knocked out. It's just the way you do it. I don't freeze them with one leg up, especially. Doesn't work.
And then they're ice sculptures for some reason.
So he takes everyone prisoner, takes them back to Snake Mountain, sends a message to the palace that they need to surrender the entire palace to him, or he's going to take care of all of his hostages.
I love this moment though. This moment, like I said, this is the turn on a dime moment, because I love that Marlene is still there with the ship, and she's doing the whole basically talking to the ship like you talk to somebody that's your confidant in that way, and she's about to leave, and then one of the royal guards shows up, and he's like, "We got a message from Skeletor," and he's saying they want them to surrender, and he's going to come in with his army, and she's like, I'm not making my home a battleground. Right. And she's like, we're going to go after him. And that's like, how often do you see this side of her? Never. Yep. So the fact that it's like this moment where everybody she cares about now is on the line. I'm getting chills thinking about it. Everybody she cares about is on the line. And yet she's holding the line and being like, oh, we're going to do this on our terms. And I love that she's like motivating that guard. And the guard kind of has this like, he's seeing her in a new light, like how we're seeing her in a new light. And there's this feeling in that moment to me where it's like, I got, like, I'll give you my life because you're talking in ways I can get behind right now.
Right.
And I love from that moment on, this is a different Marlena than you've seen in any episode of this show. I mean, she's like a woman of action from that point on, and it's just like all that she needed to hear was my son's in danger. It's like, oh hell no, it's like that was great.
Yeah, and she doesn't even hesitate. She
No.
goes, okay, so Skeletor's getting ready to here. We're not doing this. We're gonna attack him first. I mean, right there, it shows her intelligence. It shows that she's learned her history, her art of war, whatever you want to call it. She knows what needs to be done. She does it decisively and confidently. Where that the lieutenant never even questions her. He's just like, all right, let's do this.
Well, I like when he comes to her, there's a nervousness, because I think in that way he's looking at it like, you're all we have left, and he doesn't look to her as like a military strategist. But the minute she starts telling him this is how we're doing it, I love that he automatically is like, okay, he's like, and he rallies the rest of the guards.
He gets her confidence, and he even tells her, he's like, oh yeah, everyone's ready to fight, but we don't have Tila, we don't have Man, we're missing our leaders, and she steps right into that role, and he's okay, we got that because that's all we're missing, my boys are ready, put us in.
Exactly.
And then she tells him, get every ship we have aloft, and we're gonna do a full attack on Snake Mountain, and it's like awesome. And that's what leads to the big confrontation here, and you see all the guards running and getting on sky sleds and taken to the air, and we see a lot of shots of things too that we don't normally see. We're seeing this whole vehicle bay with all these sky sleds and roofs opening to let them out. You don't usually Filmation usually didn't take you there. You'd usually cut from scenes to scenes where they're already in a Wind Raider, in a Sky Sled, in whatever, and you don't really see. There's something cool about actually getting to see the mechanics of like, oh yeah, they got this whole bay door that opens over where the vehicles are kept. They go up through the ceiling, and even it's implied like that big round building that we always see in the panning shot is actually the museum. We saw that when the camera trucked in later, that's actually the museum. The museum was filled with all sorts of cool stuff. There's all this armor in there, and there's a robot, and it's like, it's kind of like Batman's trophies in the Batcave. You're like, well, what's that story?
Yeah.
What's that story? What's that?
So get Bob forward on that now.
Yeah.
But the thing about that whole moment, and again, talk about galvanizing. It's like you have all of the Royal Guards getting on their jet sleds, and you see them taking off in a formation, which that barely ever happens that I can remember either. So they're in the V formation taking off, and I love that they're waiting, and there's like a whole armada basically of these guys, and they're like, what are we waiting for? She said to wait until the lead ship shows up, and then out of nowhere, here comes the Rainbow Explorer, and I like that they're like, is that the ship? And he's like, that's a lead ship if I ever saw one. And then all of a sudden, everybody's flying they're like, once more into the breach. Let's do this. And there's just something amazing seeing all those guys following her into this. And they don't even know it's her necessarily, but it's the idea we know it's her, and I love that about it.
Yeah, that's it. And it's that scene where they all take off and she goes first, and then the sky sleds catch up, and they're heading off across the flying over the palace with the Rainbow Explorer with all these sky sleds flanking her, and it's amazing, and it's something you don't see in Filmation. I can't think of another episode of He-Man where we see this. I mean, probably the assault or the Battle of Bright Moon in the last episode of Secret of the Sword. That was probably the closest to this kind of a battle we got when they had all the Batmechs and Destructo tanks going. It's just not something they did a lot, but it's awesome seeing it here. And then we cut over to Snake Mountain, and we get this awesome shot of Snake Mountain from behind.
Yeah, I was thinking that's a whole new.
See this.
Yeah, I love that we get a new angle of it, so that it really goes to show you all bets are off in that way. It's almost like a visual to show you He-Man ain't going to do this, but there's something that's going to happen. It's going to be really cool, but we're going to show it from a different way than you're used to, at least.
So they're out back behind Snake Mountain in the mountains, and Skeletor just got them chained up there. I
like his reasoning, too.
Yeah, there's secrets in Snake Mountain you can't be privy to, but soon you'll be prisoners in the royal dungeon, or in the dungeons of the royal palace of Skeletor.
Yes.
And he is all sorts of threatening. Him and Teela are going back and forth, trading insults, and he says that he's going to send her to the prison mines of Skeletor, and he's got this all won. In his mind, this is it. Like, you all are here. What else is there? Like, and by the time he's comes up against He-Man, he's going to have the whole Royal Guard at his disposal. So he's feeling really confident here. And then he's got all his ships. He's got all the robot knights are on, the sky sleds. They call them something different. But the evil sky sleds, and then they got the Basher, the Collector, and the Doom Buggy all sitting there waiting to go. And Skeletor's making his plan too. He's like Beastman, you'll take the Collector. Trapjaw, you're in the Basher, and I'm taking the Doom Buggy, and we're just gonna go take over the palace. And him and Teela are trading insults, and then it's just that great moment when all the ships fly in, and Skeletor just like, what's going on?
What kind of ship is that?
Yeah, and quickly to the air, it's just like it worked perfectly, just like Marlena thought it would. He's completely taken by surprise. He's scrambling to even get his ships aloft to fight him, and luckily Marlena has just enough time to free Adam out of all the people chained up there.
Yes.
So. And then we go, and honestly, even with him free, it's really still on this ship battle. The hover robots take to the air, all the evil warriors get in their vehicles, they take to the air, and this battle ensues. And it's typical Filmation fare for the most part, but it's well done, I think, in this case. You've got lots of, you got sky sleds being shot down, you've got zooming here, there, everywhere. It's nothing graphic. You don't see any palace guards getting blown to pieces. But you felt the urgency. You felt the dogfight of it, I think.
Oh yeah, for me, this is probably the closest episode you ever got to a Transformers the movie action sequence, because this is definitely one of those sequences where the amount of actual characters on the screen with all the sky sleds flying around. Yeah. The robot knights, and you're seeing them all crisscrossing across the screen at one point. There's so many of them that for me, I was grinning from ear to ear going I in my mind's filling in the gaps of what the animation won't. And I'm picturing these crazy dog fights and stuff. In my head, Filmation could never do this for the era. But I'm picturing the camera over the shoulder of one of the royal guards, gunning for one of the robot knights, and it's swerving and all that kind of stuff. And I like that. Then Adam runs over and he tries to free Teela.
Yeah.
And he's pulling on her chain, trying to get it out.
He's still playing the act for a minute there. You could even tell in the animation they did a great job animating that. He's not really trying that hard. He knows he's not going to bust it. He's just kind of trying to say he tried. And then, of course, Teela's just oh, Adam, you're never going to get me free. Go at least try and find He-Man or something. He's like, oh, okay.
Well, but what you're doing right there is, I love that I caught that in the animation, because the minute he turns around, he smiles.
He does that little
You get that really quick smirk, and then off he goes. And then we're treated to the most non-transformation sequence ever. And for some reason, I am not disappointed, because there's so much else going on that I'm just kind of here's something that I think about this. Let me see if you agree with me.
Sure.
They didn't show the transformation in this episode because they didn't want to undercut the heroism that was happening already on the screen, because his mom showed up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm glad that you agree.
I feel that's exactly what it is, because all he gets is by the power of Grayskull, you get the Flash,
You
but
get the
then instead of
Flash.
cutting to the scene with Adam in front of Grayskull, and actually showing, they just cut back to the ships.
Yeah.
And they're back in the dogfight, and I think that's exactly it. This is not He-Man's win. This is not He-Man's episode. This is, because honestly, even once He-Man joins the fight, he doesn't do much.
No,
he takes out a couple knights with a rock.
Yep.
And then he takes out Trapjaw and the Basher. Oh, and I guess he does take Beastman out after that. But yeah, I mean, he helps. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the usual He-Man, and he saves the day.
Yeah,
like he's just a part of it. He's just giving them a hand.
Exactly. There's never a moment in this where they're like, "Oh man, I wish we could find He-Man right about now." It's like, no, right. this whole sneak attack that Marlena planned is putting Skeletor on his ass way faster than anything He-Man would do at this moment.
Exactly.
And I do like that they have that little line after he blows up a few of the robot knights using the boulders, like, well, I can't just stand here and throw boulders all day. It's the whole, well, that would have been the He-Man way of handling it if, they wanted to go stock animation through the whole fight. Right. Thankfully, they decided, no, we're going to put him in the fight, but he's going to take out the other guys, and the Rainbow Warrior, for lack of a better term, is going to be the one that's the lead in this thing.
Right. So, and she is. And that's kind of the thing, too. Like He-Man doesn't take a minute even to free Teela or Man-Arms or anybody. He's just there, like you said, there's this fight going on up there. I got to get up there and help them. Like, I don't have time to do anything. I need a vehicle. And so, of course, he pulls out his trusty grappling hook out of his loincloth there.
Yep.
Which we talked about before. It's whatever. But you know what? I love seeing him use it. I love that animation of him pulling it out and clipping it, and making the tongs come out, and I don't know. It's great animation. It's fun.
He can't use the bolo ever again, so he might as well have that at least. I still feel bad. Anybody want to buy a used bolo? It's like, I love that. I can't. For as cheesy as that was, I love the breaking of the fourth wall there. It still makes me happy to think about it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love that he just jumps in and he's taking care of business as he can and stuff. And I even like that when he gets into which one's he get into? The one with Trapjaw. What one's the Basher? And
remember, it's got that ram head.
The ram heads on it. Yeah. See, I can't remember Skeletor's vehicles' names for the life of me on Filmation. I'll be completely honest.
I said, the Collector is easy.
The Collector's the one I remember. I'll say that.
It was the whole point of Colossor Awakes. It was the whole game plot. And like I said, the Basher is the one that's got the ram head that comes out and bashes. And then Doombuggy's the one that's left. That's that one that looks like a giant, like, demon military ship, like. Real quick here. Huh? Why didn't they ever make toys of Skeletor's Filmation vehicles? Like, any of those would have made an awesome toy. I think the Basher probably would have been the easiest to make as a toy. Like, can you imagine a Basher toy if it's two figures in it? It's got a little handle. You press a button on the back, and a ram's head pops out that you can hit things with.
Yeah,
like that would have been an awesome toy. Like
it was always confusing for me with Filmation because like the attack track wasn't the attack track that I knew. Except
in Wizard of Stone Mountain.
Well, now that one I'll have to go back and rewatch because I don't remember that, but.
They used the toy design for the attack track in Wizard of Stone Mountain. That's the only episode.
But that's the thing. It's like, okay, so the attack track was never the way that I had it at home. And then, the Wind Raider was the closest to anything that you had as a vehicle usually. And then obviously the Sky Sled. Yeah. But yeah, maybe it was a Filmation thing. I know there's people out there who could they're probably yelling at us right now going, "It was this, you moron!" But for me, I figure it might have been like a copyright thing with Filmation because Mattel couldn't even do the Filmation figures for classics until they got a certain thing, like they got the rights or whatever to do the figures.
That was a problem later because
that was because of it being sold off or whatever.
Because Mattel sold off their stake in the Filmation rights in the 90s, which was incredibly foolish and short-sighted of them.
Yeah,
they originally had rights, and they sold all that off. And they, honestly, and that's the other thing, they could have bought them back multiple times during the years because all the Filmation rights switched hands so many times.
Yeah.
That nobody at Mattel was ever smart enough or looking ahead enough to go, hey, we should buy these back.
Yeah.
But no, at the time they could. As you know, they made Orko, they made the Sorceress, they made King Randor, which, I mean, you can argue about where exactly it came.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the 80s, they could have made any of these into toys that they wanted to.
Yeah, that is a good question because, like, I'm thinking about it, and it felt like it was more like Filmation had to bring things into the show that was a toy, like Stridor, for instance. I remember that episode. And they brought him in, and it was like a one-off kind of a deal.
Yeah.
But all these other ones they were always using, and I don't know. I'd be curious to hear the answer to that too, because
like I said, well, I think as far as like, because they basically use these ships throughout the whole series.
Yeah.
And if you remember in the early toy waves, Skeletor didn't really have any vehicles.
No.
It took him a while before they started releasing like Landshark, Roton, and all
Spidor,
that. Which we did end up seeing Landshark and Roton in season 2 here and there. So I think probably the answer just is because when they were developing this series, Skeletor had no toy vehicles, so they had to come up with something for him.
Probably.
And so they came up with these, but like I said, it's just weird that Mattel never looked at these designs and went like, hey, that'd be a cool toy. Because they would have been. Like, any of them would have been.
It's funny, going on a quick tangent, like when the line was declining and the live action movie was happening, Mattel was going into William Stout's offices and seeing the production artwork and going, this is going to be a great toy next year, and this is going to be great. And that was part of the huge rift between him and Mattel, because he was not hired to be a toy designer. He was hired to be the production designer for a movie, and they'd have to hire him on, and it wasn't he was just going to hand over all these ideas to them without them paying him for that time as well. So I think they learned their lesson after the fact, maybe, and they're like, "Oh crap, we should have been doing this all along." Well, now we got this live action movie. We could do that. And it's like, nope, you're not doing this unless you pay me. And then it's like, crap. So they're kind of screwed no matter what. But yeah, it would have been interesting to find out why they never went there with some of it, because I mean, how cool would that have been? Have it, like you said, the two figures, put them in there, and there you go. And now Skeletor has the air.
Pops out. There's the action feature. Boom. The collector, I could see them doing some of those little claws there.
They would have been firing off probably.
Oh yeah, that would have been
like
cool.
The battle ram missile. That
yeah.
It's like, oh god, cats and dogs all over the place are running for cover because there's the collector again.
God, those missiles back in the day too. Those used to shoot. I mean, the kids nowadays, you ain't got no idea. Those toy missiles back in the day, those things were fierce. That battle ram would shoot across the room. I mean, that was...
Yep. There's a reason in Christmas Story, you'll shoot your eye out resonated with our generation quite a lot, and it didn't even need a BB gun to do it. All you needed was a good battle ram and a friend that might be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Oh, God, you gotta love it. But yeah,
real quick. When I found a battle ram, it was complete with even the missile and all that at this local toy seller, and he just wanted $20. I'm like, dude, I will buy this for $20. It made me so happy to have a complete one again for the first time. And when I put it on the counter and I said I wanted to get it, I pushed the whole missile in just to make sure it didn't fall out. And when he took it, he grabbed it, he actually fired it off, and it almost punched him right in the head. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And he just started laughing, and he's like, I just wasn't ready for that. But yeah, I guess you armed it before I was ready for it. It's like,
that thing was fierce.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awesome. God,
it was.
Make vehicles like they used to.
It was.
But yeah, so we got this awesome dogfight going on. They're all, He-Man takes out Trapjaw and takes over the Basher, and then he goes and takes out the Collector with the ram of the Basher.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a good line there. It's normally I don't approve of Skeletor's methods, but I have to admit they work.
Yeah.
It's just, man, it's great writing throughout this, and so then it's just left basically the Rainbow Explorer versus the Doom Buggy.
Mm-hmm.
Skeletor's piloting that, and we get our loop back to the beginning here, where the Rainbow Explorer is down below and the Doom Buggy's up top, and it's firing down at her, and Teela, of course, is, oh no, this is it. It's stuck now because they don't know it's Marlena, and they do that with the Immelman turn, where basically you just loop up and around and come up behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, the Rainbow Explorer actually ends up saving the day by taking out Skeletor.
Yep.
And he crash lands, and He-Man comes up on him. You've lost this time, Skeletor. And Skeletor pulls the jetpack out and
there it
flies away.
The Geico commercial come to life, which I kept thinking for the longest time. The Geico thing was just over the top. Yeah. And then when I saw it watching this one today, I'm just like, son of a...
Yeah, the Geico commercial, it is what it is. I
don't
take any offense to it or anything. But yeah, it was cheesy fun. But I'd actually forgotten that he actually used a jetpack like that. Like, when it came up there, I'm like, wait a minute.
That actually gives me... it makes me have more cred for that commercial, because they went to an episode and go, hey, he did that. We could do that on here. It'll be funny, or whatever. Because it's such a stark moment in the episode, even, where it's like there's no sign Skeletor has anything that he's going to run away with. Then out of nowhere, it's like Megatron or Starscream just grabs him and takes him out of there somehow, because these wings emerge, and you're like, where the crap did that come from?
Like I said, for all that I remember, I'd forgotten that he actually used a jetpack to escape in one of these episodes, and especially this one. I did the same thing when he did. I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah. I mean,
they got it right.
for the amount of times that he just disappears, that's the main thing to me. It's like he just disappears,
opens a portal,
or he opens a portal or something. Yeah. But no, this time around he just, I'll get you next time, Gadget. It's the
whole. So he takes off. That's when He-Man gets to freeing everybody else, and the Rainbow Explorer lands, and that's when King Randor reveals, oh, don't you, that it was Queen Marlena all along. And even Adam, He-Man, almost slips up this. Here. Because everyone's like, oh, Queen Marlena? And he goes, Mother, Your Majesty?
Yeah. They've done that a couple times, I think, but this was really good the way they did that.
This was probably the most genuine feeling. Like, once again, you really just felt like at that moment he was Adam. Like, he forgot even, who he was at the moment that he was that he was powered up. It was just like, Mom?
Yeah.
What are you? Yeah. But luckily he caught himself at the moment. But yeah, that's the part that always gets me. Like you said, like that's like you just see, even he's He-Man, but you just see him as Adam. You just see him as that boy.
He's a little boy again.
He's a
seeing
little
his
boy
mom.
in that second, just like, Mom? What?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
It's very heartfelt. Very genuine.
Yeah. And then we get to go to like the whole time this is happening, Teela's doing like a play-by-play of the piloting of
amazing pilot.
And she's doing this whole play-by-play throughout the whole thing, and then when that moment happens, I just love that she's so in awe, and then at the end it turns out, the woman that wanted to show you a couple things, that's the woman that just showed you she's badass. And I like that then she's like, she wants to take her up on learning, and then the next thing that you see is she did teach Teela.
Yeah,
and Teela's they're back at
jousting
the jousting fairground or arena or whatever,
Yep.
and Teela's showing that she has learned this the Immerman movement maneuver and all
Yep.
that, and then that's that moment that all the people say this is what it's worth. Well, like watch it for this, and you have Teela's doing a great job showing this move off,
Yep.
and then Adam's like, Mother, how come out of everybody you chose to break me out of the chains? And she just has that. Well, you're my son. If you have it word for word there,
I've
read
got it,
that because I'm
I'll
gonna butcher the crap
today.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah, he just asked, why was I the only one you broke out? And she goes, Adam, a mother always knows her own son and what he is capable of doing. I've always been very proud of you, Adam.
Yeah.
That's that part right there. that's why you check out that episode. Like I said earlier, that's what you hear about, because you hear about them going, well, do you know the episode where Marlena basically said that, she knows Adam is He-Man? You go, they didn't do that. And they go, no, the Rainbow Warrior. And you're going, Rainbow Warrior, what?
Yeah.
And then you go check out this episode. And yes, that's the payoff to the entire episode right there. It's that she's just without, and I like that she didn't just say it. Because she respects the secret. She knows, that's the thing. She's telling him so much right there. Not only is she going like, "Oh, I knew you'd do the right thing. I know what you're capable of. I know my son Adam."
Yeah.
But she also is saying like, "And I get why you're keeping this from us. I get why you have to do what you have to do. You have to keep your secrets, and I'm not gonna bust you out. Like, I'm gonna let you, when you're ready, you will let us know. But I know. It's like there's so many layers in just a simple sentence, and the delivery is amazing here. Linda Gary is voicing the character in this one, because actually Queen Marlena is voiced by a couple different people depending on the episode. But Linda Gary does it here, and God, the heart and the warmth, and like I said, all these nuances she puts into every line in this episode, like you really feel that this is a character. That's the big, or not you feel like this is a real person. Like you can feel her whole story, her life, throughout just these simple words. But yeah, that's what always got me was, like I said, not even the fact that she's saying she knows his secret, but she's saying, I understand why you're doing what you're doing and why you haven't told me, why you can't tell me,
Exactly. Yeah, that moment was when I referenced it for the fact that all those lists had that episode so much, but it's like that was such a great like bow on top of that episode for me. And the other thing too that I like about it is you've seen Randor in the Prince Adam No More episode, if I'm saying the episode right there, and then you also have this one. It's like you can see why he would be who he is then, because both sides, who they fought for their causes, they fought for things, and they're brave and heroic and all that stuff. It's like he's got it on both sides. There's no way around it.
These are two very strong parents.
Yeah,
very smart, very strong, and yeah, it's only fitting that they would give birth to twins of power.
Sure, yeah, I love it.
But yeah, it's a great. And the thing is, you don't. I mean, we saw it coming because we knew that's what everyone talks about this episode. But even so, this moment still hits you out of nowhere. It's like, because they could have just. How many times have we seen it where Adam just happens to get released or whatever? Like they could have left it at that. And for the fact that he wrote that on the end here, again, is like taking Marlena to another level. Like she. Even beyond Randor, because there was never any hints that Randor has ever thought of anything more of Adam than what Adam chooses to present.
Sure.
And it puts everything in a different light too, if you look at it this way. Like you look at all those times that Marlena's interacted with He-Man,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think of that scene in Secret of the Sword where Marlena's breaking down crying and He-Man shows up and she's begging him to go save her daughter, but actually you
Yeah.
play that with which she's actually she knows she's telling Adam like Adam, go get your sister, will you?
Yeah.
But just the strength of the woman in that scene, especially that scene to keep up the charade even when here she's lost her daughter again, like.
Yeah.
These are the two, honestly, that Secret of Sword, that part of the episode, reunions is the name of the individual episode, and this one are like the Marlena episodes. Those are
Yeah.
like you learn everything you need to know about Marlena right here.
Yeah. And, I mean, like I said, for me, this episode, it reminds me of just being a kid and my mom, in that
Right.
way. And it's like that whole mixture is potent as hell to me because my mom was the one to get me into half the stuff I loved growing up, like Superman, Spider-Man, He-Man. I mean, she didn't like get me into He-Man, but she bought the toys enough that it got me into He-Man and all that stuff. She enabled the heck out of me. And there's something about like when I was a kid, I couldn't tell my dad anything. My dad and I were not the closest. He was way older. He was in his mid-50s when I was born.
Yeah.
So, he was part of the greatest generation, and I was part of Generation X wanting to sit around and play video games. So he and I didn't have a lot to talk about, and there was always this unspoken, we didn't know what to say to each other.
Right.
But when it came to my mom, she and I were really close and all that stuff. So seeing this and seeing it play out on a character, especially like He-Man, there's something that has so much more depth to this for me. And, the name, not the greatest name for an episode, just like The Search to me is one of the worst names I've ever heard for an episode. I'm sorry, it just is. But the actual good, heartfelt moments in this are amazing. The animation, you have your stock moments here and there, but for the most part, you're getting to see some stuff where it's making your mind paint the picture that maybe the animation couldn't in that time, and it's making you just cheer on Marlena even more when she's like in the skies fighting there at Snake Mountain and all
Absolutely.
that. I mean, they have the one moment in there that I really like too, where two of the robot knights are tailing her, and she turns on her afterburners and blows them up, and it's like, this is awesome, like she's got eyes all over, and it's like that's why she's the lead, because all the other guys, they're just like fighter to fighter doing the best they can. She's just going in there and just cleaning house. And the other thing that like really gets me is during the fight, she saves some of the royal guardsmen. And the guy, he's the one that delivered the news to her. So when she saves him, he actually salutes her, and I got like misty-eyed with that.
Oh,
I'm like, that's awesome. And then when everybody's saved at the end, they have that flyover moment.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and they're all just
wow, I mean, it's like I'm having a moment just remembering it, but yeah. So anyway, this is my choked up episode trying to even explain this stuff.
It's great. Like I said, it's a heartfelt story. It's an action packed one. As action packed as Filmation ever gets, and there's a stock animation, but it's done so well you don't even notice it. You don't.
Basically.
I mean, or even if you notice it, you're like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
There's the henchmen are played for laughs, but you're laughing along with them. Like,
well, the other thing about that too, the henchman part is I almost get this vibe like Trapjaw and Beastman are just done. That's the other thing I like. Like for all of the pompousness and for all of the Skeletor's got the newest plan, they even know deep down, we're going to get our asses kicked again. Why? That's why I love when he finds out what they're doing. Oh, we're watching the jousting tournament. It's like, these guys just, it reminds me of like, the guys work their asses off all through the week, and at the end of the week, they want to watch a football game and have a beer. That's basically what he did. And he did it to them on the day where they're just like, we just want to watch jousting. Can you leave us alone for a couple hours? The whole episode for me put things on a relatable level especially being an adult, trapped on Beastman, just wanting to watch something and get away from reality for a bit. Because Skeletor's like, nobody's paying attention to me. It's like, well, yeah, you're being a dick. You know, like every idea you have fails. Why would we want to do this? And then the whole mother son thing with with Marlena and Adam and He-Man and everything, and the other moment too, which I thought was a really cool thing, and it's such an underplayed moment, is the way Randor talks about her. That's one of those things where the chemistry shows through even there, because you have this awe in him watching her, and you have this kind of, I know someone who can do, and it's like there's never one moment at all where there's this vibe of the queen can't do this because she's a woman or because she's a girl. There's always this feeling of he looks at her. Except from Teela. Teela wouldn't believe it because she's been fighting uphill all her life with all these other guys doing this stuff. So I kind of like that she doesn't believe it because she feels like she's the front runner doing it.
She's the one who's like,
yes. No. Yeah. And I like that there's this whole thing with Randor watching this stuff, and like he's just got this kind of like, that's my girl, like, and that's just great too. And Lou Scheimer doing the voice for him, there is this depth that I don't hear in other episodes.
No.
And even like when they first meet in that flashback, there's something in that way. There's this, you can tell he looks at her. Yeah, it's that whole from the moment they saw each other. And it's like, he rescued her. It's the typical, the guy rescuing the girl. But there's definitely this, when they start talking, there is this feeling there. And it just works.
Yeah, and I like the younger designs of them.
I did too.
They really look good. They look, I mean, it's not huge departures, but just the little details on them that just the de-aging. It's it's like when you see the young pictures of your mom and dad, you're like, well, yeah, I can tell it's them, but it doesn't really look like them at all at the same time.
Well, what I like too is when you see the designs of her younger and him younger in that flashback, you could see Adam. If you look at the two of them, but if you look at them separately, you wouldn't notice that they'd be Adam's parents yet.
Right.
And I like that quite a lot, because that shows they made them both individual looking compared to, because if you look at Randor, you could almost go, well, that's He-Man with a mustache and beard. And he just has a different hair color. But when you see him as a younger man, no, that's not Adam. That's actually, you could tell that's Randor.
Yeah, they're just a little.
And that's a really just a little bit of a tweak to go, nope, that's his own character. So.
Exactly. Oh.
You're eating this up because I'm giving so many kudos to this episode after being the Scrooge of Filmation.
I don't think we've hit a Filmation episode yet where you're just like, oh man, this stinks.
I know there's some out there because I've seen them, but we haven't gone there yet.
There are some I don't care for.
I actually threw one out there one day when we were like, well, what one should we do next? And I go, let's do this. But you're like, we're not doing that yet. Are you kidding me? And I'm like, oh, we'll get to it. Man, I'm going to have a field day when we do that one. But we're definitely getting into the good ones. And the thing is, like, there's still a lot, like, we haven't even touched some of the pinnacle ones even yet. So that's the best thing.
And that's been our point. We've been trying to bring some love to these underappreciated, these under-talked about ones. Mm-hmm. But today for episode 10, we thought, let's talk about one of the bigger ones. Because this one does get a fair amount of credit. Even if people don't remember the episode, they go, well, the one where Marlena hints that she knows the secret, which is actually kind of interesting here because, the first thing I usually do after watching the episode is checking out the James E. Talk guide, just so I can refresh my memory of any behind the scenes stuff. And it actually says in here that this episode is one of 2 that imply that Queen Marlena knows of Prince Adam's secret identity. And the other episode where she hints at that is the Energy Beast.
Oh.
Which I have not watched in a long time because, frankly, I've never been too impressed with that episode. And I honestly, I cannot recall what she does in that episode that implies it. So, but now I've got to go check out the Energy Beast
All
to
right.
refresh my memory, because Shawn especially knows how much I hate it when I can't remember something.
Oh, this is your kryptonite. When
Oh,
you
it
don't know
is.
something, it just makes you crazy. I know.
I've got to find out. So yes, this episode is one of two that imply. So this one does get a bit of buzz because it's the one. This is the good episode, I'll say, that implies
the other side of the
the
coin is
secret
next.
identity. But yeah, so it's a solid episode. You know what? I've been flipping back and forth all day long about where I'm rating this, and I'm just gonna do it, ladies and gentlemen. 10 out of 10. I cannot, even with, okay, the one thing I could improve is the name of the episode, but I can't even come up with a better one. So, you know what? I don't care. This episode is perfection. I'm going to give it, this is my first episode that I'm going to give a 10 out of 10. And there's not many that I will give a 10 out of 10. I'm telling you, this is not something I throw around lightly. I was bouncing back and forth between 9 and 10. I was even thinking about going 9.5. But you know what? Watching it again an hour ago, 2 hours, whenever I watched it, 10 out of 10. That's my final answer.
I see. That's the thing. I'm going back and forth still about it. Okay. I'm gonna say. Oh man, this is hard. Because like I'm thinking of like what was a moment in it that I really felt was weak.
Yeah.
And I don't. The only thing I could think that was weak was the plan that Skeletor had. It wasn't the greatest plan because, like I said, he's dealing with robot knights and his henchmen. Yeah. He goes and tries to take over somebody else, and they're going to be like, Skeletor's jerks. Who said that? You know, he's going to be that guy. So there's an element of that, but when you look past that, you just see the actual story play out.
Yeah, you actually watch the episode. Like every scene gives you something. Every scene delivers. And so that's what finally swayed me. But there's no wrong answer here.
No. But as much as I don't want to, I don't want to double up. But I have never seen an episode of Filmation that made me cry until this one. Yep. So 10 out of 10 on that, because man, did they hit me hard. Like that whole, like her being in the lead and all of that stuff. It's like in knowing who it is that's the one that's going in to save the day. Absolutely. That gets me every damn time. And I'm trying to think of why I would get that choked up about it. I don't even know. It's mostly, I think it's the parent thing. At this point in my life, it's the whole, she's going in there because her whole family's in danger, and it's, you know, the chips are down and she's just bringing everybody with her. And it's like, that for me is some powerful storytelling for that. And
it's the rare Filmation episode that pairs the heart of Filmation with some legit action.
Yeah.
You know, it's and like I said, the animation was on point through this whole episode. You know, usually there's at least a couple scenes where it's kind of sloppy, a little weak, a little off model. Not this one, man. I mean, them struggling in the chains, Adam struggling in the chains, that is some animation there. They pull out a rarely used unsheathing of the power sword for when he finally does transform. I mean, they pulled out all the stops with this.
Yeah, they gave him the by the power of Grayskull, I command the drawbridge open for the transformation and that more, which I was like impressive because there's not many times they diverge from that, but there are a handful that I could think of where I'm like, yeah, that's a different transformation. And I mean, I would have never figured a 10 out of 10 episode for me with Filmation would have hardly any transformation sequence.
Yeah.
But here it is. This is the one that broke through the mold there completely, because it's like that was one of the few times I've ever watched the show and he wants to transform. I'm like, I could give a crap less. Everything else is awesome already. Like, this is amazing.
No, it's the little smirk on Adam's face when he goes to transfer. I mean,
love that. Yeah.
And they didn't even have to say it, but like Orko tries to use his magic on the chains, and they kind of glow like they're repelling the magic, and they didn't even have to sit there and like dictate to you like, oh yeah, they're magic proof, which they normally would have. It's just like you see Orko try and fail, and it's like, okay, you know, it's just, I don't know. They're just, all the characters are their utmost best. It's very well written, and it delivers it all.
One other thing that makes it even a 10 out of 10 is the moral. We didn't even touch on that.
I did want to bring that up too because, go ahead, take it. I know
The
what you're going to say.
The moral of this episode isn't preachy. The moral of this episode is, I love that it counters back. It comes all the way back to the Teela and Queen Marlena moment in the beginning of the episode. And it's the two of them talking, and Marlena basically saying to her, just because I'm an older person and I'm a mom and all that stuff doesn't mean that I wasn't young once, and I don't understand how you feel, and I didn't do some crazy stuff back in those days either. And I loved that was one of the best morals I've ever seen on the series, because it wasn't just them doing, don't do drugs or brush your teeth or whatever. It was, your parents were human too.
They didn't even talk to you.
No, it was just the two of them having a nice little moment.
It was not them standing there going, in today's story, we...
Yes.
No,
and I love that.
It was just another scene. For a second there, I was even kind of like, wait, is this and then the credits came up, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, that was the moral. Like, because it is. It's just them talking back and forth, and Teela goes, I'd love if you would teach me how to fly. She calls it just the rainbow there.
Yeah.
And Queen Marlena goes, well, only if you'll teach me how to fly a sky sled, and
which
that's
I want to see that episode. I want to see Marlena on the sky sled going nuts, and like that would have been awesome too. But
yeah, it's a well done moral. It doesn't preach. They don't even talk to you. It's just it's an extra scene. Bob just squeezed down extra scene on Filmation, and they're like, okay, but it gets the point across at the same time.
It does. It does a beautiful job of doing the opposite of what everybody thinks of those morals, and it just makes me go, like, if they would do that more often on those morals, I think people might have digested them easier, because it's basically, it's like, it reminds me of like an ends credits moment at the end of a Marvel movie, because it added to what you already just saw. Versus, here's Orko telling you, don't run away from home, kids. It's not a good idea. I mean, and I mean, this whole, I can't. Oh my God! Like I'm starting to rant about it in like a good way, but it's like, there's nothing about this episode that the only things I could think of are things that were limitations of the time that now it would be fun to see an updated version, like the dog fight at Snake Mountain. But even then, they did an amazing job for what they could do back in those days.
It worked in that episode. You do not feel that fight is lacking at all when you're watching it. Like I said, I debated back and forth because I was really hesitant to give out a perfect grade this early, but you know what? It earned it.
Yeah,
it absolutely did.
This episode, like, poor Matt knows. The one that I always go back to is House of Chakotay, because that one was the most affecting for me as a kid. Like, it scared me when I was a kid. The idea of you're fighting the creatures of the night and you're a kid in this dark temple, and all you want to do is get home again. There's something about that, plus the history of Chakotay, it's that whole, there's so many levels to that episode that when we get to that one, we might have to do a two-parter, just because I'll have way too much to talk about. But like, when I look at that story, is one of my favorites, but it's like, this is one of those undiscovered gems that isn't like, that's why it surprised me how many top 5 lists or top 10 lists this was on, because you would think, Diamond Ray Disappearance is going to be on there, Dragon's Gift, Teela's Quest, all of the typical ones that you associate, and then here all of a sudden it's like Rainbow Warrior, and then when you watch it, you're like, where have you been all my life? Like, this is truly goodness served up on a plate. It's just that simple. So
absolutely.
So and I'm glad we got to cover it earlier than later, because this does warm my heart enough that I'm probably going to have a curve on how I grade Filmation from here on out. Because I'm like, but they gave us Rainbow Warrior. That'll be my answer to most things. Rainbow Warrior.
Absolutely. This is a perfect episode. Like I said, if you've never checked it out, check it out. If it's been a while, check it out again, because it only gets better the older you get. So I do want to take one moment here. I meant to do this at the top of the episode, but I forgot. So we're going to do it now. I did want to say in our last episode, we came up with we had the story discussions, and
Yes.
Shawn had used a character called the Allfather, that he had learned about. Excuse me, off the He-Man.org forums, and we were reached out to by Danielle Galerta, who works on the bios now, and she just wanted to set the record straight that the name Allfather was come up with. That was a name created by Eric Marshall, who was given to a German comic book character. So, there was a German comic involved in that story, like Shawn said, about these spirits from another world, but they weren't actually named. And then when Eric was creating some stuff with them, he named the lead one Allfather, because he obviously looks a lot like Odin.
Yes.
So
yes.
But that isn't actually an official name. But I just want to throw it out there. And if you're looking for it, like I was in the Character Guide and World Compendium, look for Anti-World Spirits, because that is the group that these guys came from. And Eric just took them a step farther, and then Shawn took them a step farther. Because that's what we love about Masters, is that they can always go a step farther. So thank you, Danielle, not really correcting us, but letting us know about the backstory on that.
Basically, this is the moral of this episode. In today's episode, we learned that Shawn just takes random things from the internet and runs with them. Yeah. So, if you want actual factoids, talk to either Danielle or Matthew. Yeah, until next time.
And Eric Marshall, don't forget
and
him.
Eric Marshall,
he's done a lot of great work on the bios. But that's what we were talking about. It's like, and that's what our whole last episode was about, is just the depth of this world.
Yes.
That everyone just kind of, through no fault of their own. I mean, I know there's no new media really besides a comic book series that may or may not end this month, depending on what's going on with Diamond. But
probably digital, though. It'll be on there, I'm guessing. Comixology, I'm guessing, will still have it.
Yeah, are they still releasing the new issues, or is it like a complete stop? Because I
don't think they'd have anything to do with the digitals being not released. I think it's the comic companies have they've actually told a decent amount of their writers and creators that they were kind of closing down books for the time being to figure stuff out. But I'd imagine, like, this book should have been done. So it wouldn't surprise me if it gets released the same time, but it'll just be digital for the time.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was any. I don't follow any other comic series regularly, but I know my local shops have not gotten anything for the last 2 weeks, and they said that they're not getting anything probably for another month, they're thinking.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how that affected it, if they would hold the digitals because the prints can't go out or what.
We shall see, because I think it comes out near my wife's birthday this month. So if it ends up being out there, I'll check it out. And
it should be either next week or the week after. So
yeah, my wife's birthday is the 18th, so I figured it'd be, because the last one came out on my daughter's birthday on the 18th too. Because the 18th is just that number for our family, apparently. So
yeah, we'll see. But anyways, but what I was saying is it's just like it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, there is so much depth here. There is so much stuff to pull from, and that's why we're here. That's why we started Legends of Grayskull, just to kind of talk about some of this stuff that people aren't really talking about anymore. So hopefully we can get some good discussion going and just get people to check out some episodes or some comic series or something that they haven't given a chance to in a while.
True. And the other thing, too, with those story episodes like we do, we just want to have fun. That's absolutely the main thing. And it's fun to do that stuff. And that's kind of, for us, that's like our contribution to, hey, we're not just going to talk about the news. We're not just going to talk about all the other stuff everybody else can cover. We're going to have a little more creativity in what we do with, like, hey, let's come up with a story that what's Cyclone doing this month, or what's Fisto doing, whatever. And so in that way, like, for the most part, we try our best to put the correct stuff in there, but that stuff's always going to have a tinge of creator's license with the way we handle it like that. So don't come to us expecting that stuff to be perfect. It probably won't mesh up exactly, but it'll be fun to listen to at least.
That's it. You know,
it's all about creativity.
That's all those are. Those discussion episodes are all about creativity. So, but we got some good feedback on them. Like I said, I just want to thank Danielle for setting the record straight as far as Allfather and explaining why I couldn't find it in my compendium. So, the other thing is, I know I said I was going to draw the winners of the Funko Pops today. I was thinking about it, and I think that is something I would probably go over better if I were to do it live. So I won't be doing that at this moment. This episode will release on Thursday, so probably look for me Saturday or Sunday. I'll go live on the YouTube page and I'll do it up that way, you know, just to try and avoid any thoughts that we may have rigged it or anything. Not that we would do that. This is all good fun.
Well, that also gives people a couple more days to subscribe then.
So yes, that's what I was gonna say. It gives you a couple more days.
Yep.
Share, subscribe, so you're entered in. So I'll put whoever's there that day that I draw as a subscriber. I'll do it. So you got a couple more days if you're just listening this Thursday or Friday. Also ring that bell so you'll get notified when I do go live, and you can watch me pick your name at the time.
There you go.
Go ahead and check out. Since you brought them up earlier, Roast Google Dinner. I'm gonna go put a link down below to them. They're another great podcast. Check out Daniel and Eric's bio work. They do some great stuff. Check out Shawn's October Sun Facebook art page. He hasn't updated it recently, but he's got good stuff coming. We've been talking about some stuff. So
yeah,
he'll get there.
It's a grind lately at work right now. So
work's got to come first. We all understand.
Yeah, unfortunately,
but he's still got some great back stuff on there. So go check that out. Check out our Legends of Grayskull Facebook page. We have some fun there. We talk about some stuff. Let us know your thoughts on the show. Let us know what you think, how we're doing, how much we've gotten wrong. We love it.
Yeah.
Shawn, you got anything?
Let me think here. Not too much. I mean, I'm also on Council of the First Ones. I want to cross promote because I've been doing that on there as well for us. We just had a pretty big interview over the weekend. I'm not going to say who it was, but it is definitely going to be an interesting listen. You'll see why I say that when you listen to that episode.
I look forward to hearing it.
Beyond that, I can't think of too much else, to be honest. I will be that guy though, and I will say that my Facebook let me know that somebody has a major event happening tomorrow.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So if you want to go on and wish Matthew over here a happy birthday tomorrow, and that'll be April 9th.
That will
make
be
his
the day
days.
This premieres, so
say happy birthday. Let him know that you love him. Let him know that you like the podcast. That'll make his birthday even better. If you want to go on there and give us some good feedback.
That Facebook. It's not supposed to show that stuff until the day of.
Hey, I'm gonna be 42 this year. What are you talking about? Yeah. I don't want to think about it anymore.
All right. So
but anyway, so that would be
part will be edited out of here. So, well, thank you. And thank you to all our listeners who have made this so wonderful. We look forward to entertaining you every week. It's been a blast so far. Like I said, like, share, subscribe, stay up to date on all the current news. And until next time.
Until next time.